All right, hello. Welcome. I think I just started recording. We're going to be doing our webinar about the trading post method. So just to introduce myself, I'm Sierra Ferrante. I'm a third year environmental studies student at UC Santa Barbara. I'm also working with a year-long project at our school called ELI, or the Environmental Leadership Incubator. So encouraging students to take on an environmental project of their choice and make change in their community. So what I'm doing with my project is helping to spread the word beyond our community about an awesome organization that we do have here in Isla Vista, which is the community surrounding UC Santa Barbara. And that is an organization called Ivy Trading Post. Um, and um, alongside this webinar, there's going to be a lot of videos releasing very soon. They should be dropping later this week on YouTube that we've been making with Ivy Trading Post to highlight different aspects. So about the benefits to the environment from their voice of what they do, as well as some videos about how they impact the community, and also like a how-to video, as well as some informational stuff. An interview we did with a professor, so just a lot of great stuff to get people started and to learn about why sustainable fashion is important from a group that's actually on the ground making that impact. So I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen. So you should be able to see that now. Can you? Yeah. Okay. So great. So let's get into it. Um, Oops, sorry, one second. Yeah. All right, let's get into it. So the trading post method. Um, So first, I wanted to back up and talk a little bit about why circular fashion is important and kind of what that is. So the fast fashion industry is responsible for a lot of waste. I recently read that if the fast fashion industry was a country, it would actually be the fourth largest emitter of carbon dioxide in the world. It also employs many unfair labor practices, often uses toxic materials. So fast fashion is kind of what we're talking about with these companies recently, companies like Forever 21, H&M, Shein, that pump out new styles, not just every season anymore, but literally almost every week, every month. And unfortunately, the impact of fast fashion has spread beyond just these specific companies because now um, people have just sort of become completely acclimatized to the idea that you should always be buying new clothes all the time. And the idea that you need to be constantly changing up your wardrobe, your style, always buying new clothes. And similarly, a lot of these companies are very irresponsible with how they deal with all that fashion waste. Most of the time, they're not at all responsible for all of the textile waste that is associated with their activities. Um, oh, sorry, not going to that slide yet. And so there's just a ton of fashion waste that's piling up, and then also it's just harmful to the environment because of how much energy it takes to produce all this clothing, and like I said, they're not even paying the workers very much. So it's just overall a really bad bad cycle that we've gotten ourselves into. It's very consumerist, and really it's unnecessary, and there are better ways that we can participate in fashion. And what is so great about circular fashion is that it still allows us to be changing up our wardrobe, but it focuses on reducing the harm of constantly creating so much clothing. So circular fashion, like I said, has many benefits. It reduces the amount of raw materials necessary to produce clothing. That's because we are recirculating clothing and wearing clothing that's already been worn, so we don't need to be extracting as much raw materials. It avoids companies that use unfair practices. Like I said, a lot of these fast fashion companies that rely entirely on just pumping out cheap, low quality clothing at a high rate. I mean, some people point out that, like, of course, just because circular fashion alone doesn't guarantee that we're not using unfair labor practices, but generally, the groups that are promoting recirculation at lower costs are also working within frameworks that are going to treat people better. So that's just something to keep in mind. Um, and also we're just generally wanting to avoid these companies that we know are bad. Um, there's lower textile waste because with clothing being in use longer, there's less of it being thrown away. And it also is a way to create community. So as we're going to talk about, really effective circular fashion requires participation from many different groups of people, which really allows you to create a community around this clothing recirculation rather than just giving, just the sort of transactional nature of fashion as it is today. Um, so the thing about Ivy Trading Post, why is it so cool? What even is it? Well, basically, IVTP, Ivy Trading Post, is a student and community organization that was started by UCSB students 10 years ago, that works to recirculate clothing within the Ivy community. And we're going to talk a little, like, very specifically about what they do. But their signature event is the 3 for free. And so that's literally an event where anyone who comes can take 3 free items of clothing. Um, that's it. That's literally the event. It's giving out free clothes. They also provide events and education about the harms of overconsumption in fast fashion, as well as upcycling and repair workshops. So their overall goal is to keep more clothing in circulation longer. And they do all of this by collecting donations from the community using volunteer engagement and then giving them back for free. So it's really an organization that's entire purpose is to facilitate the recirculation. But as I mentioned, the community are the people who make it run. They're the ones who provide the clothing and also the ones who attend the events. And so it's really important though to differentiate or like why this is cool. You can look here in capitalism, what we usually do, it's just a one-way track. You buy clothing, you wear clothing, you throw it away. But with IVTP, you get clothing, you wear it, you donate it, someone else wears it. They donate it, someone else wears it. And really, these things can stay in circulation way more times than just one person wearing them. And also pairing that with these other things like upcycling, repair can even help further extend that lifetime. So clothing can be recirculated even more times without having to make a new garment from scratch. Um, Oops. I wanted to also just make a distinction here that IVTP is not a thrifting organization. We love thrifting. Thrifting is awesome. And I highly recommend that if you do want to buy clothes, buy them thrifted instead of brand new from a fast fashion company. But the reason that IVTP is so cool is that it goes even further than just the material aspect of recirculating the same pieces of like textile. When you thrift, it costs money each time to recirculate the clothes. So someone initially buys a garment, they wear it, they donate it to a thrift shop, or the thrift shop sometimes buys it off people. Then the thrift shop sells it back to another user for money, and they make a profit. And that's good because it is, allowing for reuse to be profitable, but the benefit is coming from a buyer-seller relationship where the buyer gets an item that's new to them and the seller gets money. So it's still just like very transactional. It's very like one person's behind a register, one person's giving money, and then they get clothes. But trading is not that. Trading, which is what IVTP does, is not a monetary transaction. It's literally just like you give clothes you don't want anymore, and in return, you get new clothes. And often, the way, IVTP does it is you don't even have to actually have donated to get something. And similarly, that encourages people to donate without necessarily getting something. And a lot of people in the community are really enthusiastic about donating to IVTP rather than anywhere else because they know that their clothing will be recirculated and that one day, the favor will get paid back when they come and want new clothes. So I think it's just like creating that atmosphere where people have that understanding that by contributing, they can also take, but that it's not costing them money. And so the benefits of this go beyond just helping the environment, but it's also, helping people who are low income maybe or may not have as access to as many resources to constantly be buying new clothing. Also speaking from a Santa Barbara perspective, um, the thrifting around here is really expensive. Oftentimes it is really nice, like, very designer thrifted stuff, but it means it's like not necessarily cheaper. Like oftentimes around here, it's literally cheaper to buy from fast fashion than it is to thrift. And so IVTP is undercutting all of that by making it completely free. Um, so talking about what they actually do, let's actually get into the nitty-gritty. If you want to start a trading post, what do you need to do? Here are the 4 steps that I would say break down what needs to happen. So the first thing is you need to go out there and collect clothes. So the way IVTP generally does this is to hold collection events for the community. They also sort of advertise, and since they're a pretty well-known organization, people will generally bring their clothes if they know that IVTP is going to be somewhere. But if you're starting out, I highly recommend advertising sort of like standard clothing drive style. Other things that IVTP does or has done is, if you are on a college campus, put boxes in the dorms, for example, and just encourage people to donate old clothing that they're not using. Then that's where this is the next step too, is where your volunteers come in. So it is worth recognizing that not every piece of clothing that someone donates is necessarily worthy of being recirculated. And I guess worthy may not be the right idea, but for example, if someone stopped wearing something because it's got a giant stain on it, it's unlikely that someone else is going to actually want to take that item, and so it may just end up staying in the pile forever. So what IVTP usually does is they sort the clothes first, like literally just by like, oh, pants over here, shirts over here, but then also taking out ones that are dirty or stained or look like they have something on it or that are damaged. Um, and then the ones that are just going to be directly and immediately recirculated. Then that's where the other aspects come in, where they'll often host other community events where they maybe take those garments that are not immediately usable. They might sew them into new things. They might, um, upcycle them, find like literally anything, any way to use that material still. So there's very little, like usually things don't get thrown out per se, but you do just want to separate out items that are not likely to ever be taken immediately and find something else you could do it. I know they've done like blankets to donate to homeless shelters, like stuff like that from the fabric. Um, but generally people are going to give you stuff that's pretty, like still pretty wearable. Like, it's probably close to like 90% of all of, maybe even more depending on the day, of all the stuff that comes in is immediately recirculatable. But generally, you do just want to look out. So this is like the first place where you're going to really be involving volunteers. Then step three, um, give away those clothes. So what IBBTP does is they host their three for free events. So this is where they take all the clothes that they've sorted and folded, they find a location, often in a park or something like that, lay it all out and say free clothes. And anyone coming by can grab a certain amount. The reason that they limit it to three is it's flexible. People don't have to take three. Sometimes people can take four, but it is like you don't want people to just come and take like 100 items, especially because if you're encouraging that, there may be some incentive for people to want to like, oh, I'm gonna go sell this on Depop. People don't often do that because of the atmosphere that is created, but generally, like, that's why you kind of want to keep it to like, okay, you know, take a reasonable amount of clothing. And, your organization can decide based on your needs how many that is, what the rules are exactly, but it's not infinite, but you do just, want to be able to allow people to take not just one, but many items of clothing. Um, and then yeah, anything that wasn't given away that specific day, they, store it and repeat for a future event. So some notes here, which are addressed also in the videos if you guys do choose to watch those. IVTP, their only like permanent infrastructure, I suppose you could say, is that they do have a shed in someone's backyard, and these moving bags. So that being said, that's a pretty recent development. Before, it was often like someone's dorm just housed, like the part of it is that the organization has really grown, so they have a lot of clothing now. But when it was small, it was literally just being held in someone's apartment or dorm backyard. So that's kind of the only true challenge, which we're gonna talk about when we get into the workshop part of this, of how you can figure out the logistics that will work for your specific situation. Oftentimes, you might be able to partner with like a sustainability group on campus that has a usable space where you can just store the things. But really, as you can see, it's a pretty simple setup, and a pretty simple thing to do. The only thing is just you have to remember you're going to have a bunch of clothes on your hands. Um, and then, as I said, you can also throw in other fun things in the middle here. So maybe after your first three for free, you want to have another event where you upcycle all of the previous clothes. Or maybe you want to do it beforehand and then give away the upcycled clothing, stuff like that. IVTP has also had fun events where they allow people to personalize clothing that they're taking. So like screen printing or embroidering. But that's where you can really be creative and use the resources at your disposal. But generally, these are the most four important steps. And once you kind of gotten it started, you can literally just keep going. Collect more clothes, recirculate more clothes. And IVTP usually circulates like well over 500 items a, per, well, Now I'm forgetting the exact numbers, but it's like usually one event will recirculate like 1 to 200 pieces of clothing, and they usually have events like multiple times per term. So once you really get it started, you can really take off and recirculate a lot. Um, so yeah, bringing it back to that, pretty simple. You need a way to collect clothes, somewhere to store them, events to give them away. You also probably are going to need some volunteers. Although this organization was started 10 years ago by just two people, and although it's grown a lot in our community, over the last 10 years, it really can be as simple as just one, you and your friends doing this. Um, but one thing that I am gonna have, ask people to focus on is that this group has really adapted their marketing, their sort of approach to things to fit the Isla Vista community, which is our local community. But there can be modifications to this that might suit your group better. And maybe you don't just take clothes. Maybe you also encourage some other items that people are really like want to reuse within your community. Um, and then also you're going to want to think about what is the best way to promote and advertise these things. So IVTP is very strong on social media, but they also will often do tabling events on our campus. But each campus is kind of unique, I think, in the way that they approach um how people find out about things. Like, are you posting it on Yik Yak? Do people have a group Snapchat story for the class? Like, is there a spot where everyone flyers? Is there a big email list you could get on? And I think all of those things are awesome, but you know your school best. IVTP usually relies on tabling, and social media outreach, as well as they often will table. Our school has a lot of like fairs and stuff, and they'll table at that, which I think helped kind of get their name out there. So that's kind of up to you to figure that out. Um, and I'm realizing I embarrassingly left the template contact our team nameandexample.com. Yeah, maybe don't do that. Yeah, so this kind of concludes the overviewy part of the of this webinar. So what's going to happen now is people that are here on um Zoom, we're going to go into the workshop part. So I have um a worksheet that we're going to go through. Um and if you're watching this on Zoom, I mean, sorry. Well, yes, that's for if you're watching it on Zoom. If you're watching the recorded version of this, which should be uploaded to YouTube, then in the description, there is a bunch of instructions as well as links to a bunch of stuff that kind of explain and take you through doing your own version of the workshop. It's not me giving you homework. It's really just like I kind of have some more extensive resources for people to understand how to fit the model to their own community and actually to start planning it. And it's kind of hard to do that as a one size fits all. So really what you want to think about is how your community can benefit from something like this, and how you want to advertise it. And so that's what the worksheet really takes you through. But my final words to remember are it really is as simple as collect clothes, sort clothes, give clothes away, store whatever's left, do it again. Um, and I mean, for that matter, the last thing that I think people might want to consider if you're not really familiar with this method does not have to be done as an ongoing organization. You can very much just do one clothing recirculation event to start. So you could collect clothes, sort them, give them away, and then maybe just donate whatever's left to a local homeless shelter. Someone else can use them. And I say that for people who maybe don't want the commitment of like, oh, so wait, I'm just going to be doing this for 10 years now. Like, no, you don't have to. You can also just have one, like, do the trading post for 1 week, see what it's like. Because it really is like, if you end up with some extra clothing that you don't know what to do with, guess what? Give it to a shelter or go donate to a thrift shop. There's other ways to recirculate that clothing. And so I recommend that you try out an event and see what it feels like. And if it's something you like, then you can work on maybe finding something like the shed or some kind of permanent infrastructure. And once again, those videos are going to be going up soon and they'll be emailed. I mean, for people who are here, I'm gonna drop the links at the end of the Zoom. But for people watching this recorded, I'm assuming it was emailed to you or something. You got a link there, and those other links will be included. So obviously, I'm giving an overview as someone who's working in partnership with Ivy Trading Post. but those videos really highlight what they do in a more deep fashion from their own voice. Specifically how they approach the three for free. There's sort of more depth on what that actually looks like. Also sort of some tips on running the organization and creating a strong community. Um, One of the biggest themes from the people who run Ivy Trading Post is that creating a space where people can really also have fun and treat it like not just, again, it's like breaking down that monetary transaction, making it so it's not just a thrift store, but creating an actual community is a really big part of it. And lastly, there's just simply how-to information. And if you're interested in sort of a more podcast format thing, um, there is an amazing professor on my campus, Michael Brown, who did a little interview with me to really give some more background on the circular economy, um, and the impacts of fast fashion and sort of what it looks like and why IVTP really is so unique and cool from an academic perspective. So all of that will be on YouTube as well. And yeah, so I'm gonna end the recorded part here and we're gonna move into the workshop, but I hope to hear from you all soon. My info will be given to you guys if you're in the chat, and then of course, linked. And as this project has come to mean so much to me, I really want to hear how people are doing. Send me updates. Did you end up having a recirculation event? That would be amazing. So yeah, thank you so much and have a or if you're on Zoom, bye bye. I mean, I keep saying that backwards. If you're on the recording, bye. And for those of us on Zoom, we're gonna hop over to the workshop.